morning, everyone. This is Victor Lund with the WAV Group and RE Technology. I'd like to welcome you to today's GoToWebinar. We're going to be talking about the Real Estate Standards Organization and how it's been internalized by one of the nation's MLSs, CoreLogic, how they've approached the opportunity for MLSs to standardize their data, making it easier for agents and brokers to power the technology solutions that are vital to their business today. So as we get going, I just want to introduce to you our panelists today. We have Jeremy Crawford. He's the CEO of the Real Estate Standards Organization, happily called RESO. We also have joining us Kevin Greene, and Kevin Greene runs the Trestle program for CoreLogic. So welcome, gentlemen. We look forward to your presentations today. So one of the things that has been happening in America is that we've seen quite a bit of development with standards. One of the pivotal moments for standards in real estate was the creation of the requirement by the National Association of Realtors that all MLSs who are affiliated with NAR and chartered under the NAR MLS charter all adhere to the MLS standards. And we're going to talk about two components of that standard today. We're going to be talking a little bit about the data dictionary, and we're also going to be talking a little bit about the web API and how that data is transmitted from the MLS system out to third parties. One of the reasons that prompted this particular webinar is that for many, other than about a dozen MLSs today, all of the MLSs in America will depend upon their vendor to become certified. Their vendor has to do the work to make it all available, so it's really vital that we understand it all. So let's begin by just issuing a reminder about how the GoToWebinar control panel works. There is a questions dialog box there. By all means, open that up, and as we go through today's presentation, if you have any questions, put them in there, and as we get to the end of today's webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session and we'll get them all answered for you. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jeremy Crawford. Jeremy, are you with us?
I am with you. Thank you, Victor, for that great introduction. And I want to thank everyone for attending and giving us the opportunity to talk about RESO standards, why they're important to the brokerage community and the industry, and just really give you a high-level overview of what we do at RESO and how it impacts the industry as well as impacts your local business market and can help your brokerages, brokers, and agents and so forth. But I want to take a moment to step back to start the conversation off and talk about standards in general. So as we take a look at the world that exists today, really standards play a key ingredient in all aspects of business and the successes that come about and their efficiencies in many, many different industries based upon standards that you may not be familiar with today. So I want to take this macro view. In the U.S., there's over 100,000 standards at work today. And based upon the Department of Commerce, globally, 80% of every dollar that is spent has some aspect of standardization in it. So if you take a look at your plumbing institute, your electrical institutions, there's so many standards out there in the world. A couple of real-world examples just at the high level is one program with the Department of Defense is projecting a $780 million cost avoidance by moving to using standards. And from my perspective, I'm not a big fan of paying taxes, and to see the Department of Defense come up with this level of savings on just one individual program is really a testament to how the government's behind standards and they see the cost savings and the efficiencies to move in that direction. If we take a look at the electrical industry, as I mentioned earlier, what you may not realize is a group of competitors of electricians and electrical part makers actually got together. And this is really where the standards comes to play to be the benefit of all in a particular industry. And so many of you are familiar with the GFI circuit that you have in your house, in your bathrooms, and outside that may trigger sometimes if there's some sort of water. Well, that was a standard created by direct competitors in the electrical industry and has a result of saving over 40,000 home fires, over 1,400 injuries. But if you take a look, that's over 350 deaths annually are estimated to be saved by one individual tiny standard of the GFI circuit. And essentially these standards worldwide are allowing you to have products and services, innovation in those products and services, competitiveness for your own business, but primarily reducing cost and reducing duplicated efforts by using standards. And so we really want to take a little micro view of our industry and see how that plays here. But I'd like to start with the brokerage conversation. And essentially the brokers are the heart of the revenue within our industry. And if you could switch to the next slide, we reached out to the brokerage community. And with the brokerage community, we surveyed hundreds of thousands of agents that were represented in the brokerage community. And the response of those surveys were really geared towards what challenges do brokers have today, and what can we do from the RESO perspective and collaborative in the industry to help resolve those challenges. So if we can go to the next slide, please, it would be great. The first thing we asked for the brokerage community is how many products and services do you actually have within your brokerage community? And if you'll go to the next slide, we found out that most brokerages have more than 5 products and tools and systems within their brokerage community to help them transact business. And the fact is that they don't talk to each other today. And one of the biggest challenges with that is because the inconsistent data fields that they receive from the MLSs. And those inconsistent data fields are causing them challenges in the products and services that they need the data to work for them so they can transact business, which results to us all being in business in this industry, because we at RESO see the brokerage community at the heart. In looking at the brokers, 91% of the brokers surveyed nationwide said data standards were critical to give them what they need for their business and to be able to provide them those level of efficiencies that other industries have had. And so as we drill down to the broker perspective, 85% of those brokers we surveyed nationwide across, again, hundreds of thousands of agents representative, believed that they had consistent data across the MLS through standardization, they could reduce their technology cost. It would be a focus on technological innovation as opposed to maintenance that they deal with today because of disparate data systems. They could correct software bugs more quickly, but the big thing is they could get faster time to market with their products, get quicker response times, and work on helping their agents transact business as opposed to dealing with legacy infrastructure issues that don't need to take about. So where does RESO fit into this picture? And I wanted to give you a very high-level view that RESO, we are an independent, nonprofit, membership-based organization. We are not part of NAR. I like to clarify that. NAR did help start RESO in the late 90s for the good of the industry, but in 2011 we were incorporated, so we are a standalone organization. Within the RESO community, we have over 700 organizations that are members today, and over 1,000 subject matter expert volunteers that contribute to the good of the industry and industry-wide data standards. And so those members and those subject matter experts come from the MLSs, they come from Association of Realtors, they come from technology companies, both those that make products and services for the industry, as well as MLS software providers such as CoreLogic, who's with us today, and also the brokerage community. And so we actually have today 5 of the 19 RESO board of directors are from the brokerage community, both at the franchise level from Keller Williams and Home Services of America, down to the independent brokerage level from the group in Fort Collins, Michael Saunders and Company in Florida, and the Realty Alliance all sit on the RESO board of directors to ensure what we're doing has the broker transaction at the forefront and the pain points and the challenges they experience. Now, why are we a membership-based community? Only members can contribute to the future evolution of standards. All of our standards are open source and freely available to the public. For us to be able to provide that level of intellectual property protection, only members can contribute because members agree to provide contributions to the standards, and they agree they will not seek out litigation against others that use those standards, making those standards open source. And we are aligned with the same business models of other standards organizations that are open source out in the industry. So again, all of our standards are free and open source, available to everyone to use. They're always available for download in any manner on RESO.org, but the membership community is who drives the changes with those. Included with the membership aspect is certification. The RESO Board of Directors voted last year to make certification a free member benefit to help ensure the correct adoption of standards. Adoption at the MLS level, adoption within the brokerage community, and adoption within the technology community to allow the best available data portability from MLS data sets and other data sets so that the brokers can have a consistent data experience. So what do we have at RESO? We essentially have two different types of work products. The definition of the data itself, which is the RESO Data Dictionary that started in 2010, and then the transportation mechanism for that data. How does the data go from point A to point B, such as from an MLS system to a broker CRM system? And so those are the two standards that we focus on today for the entire real estate community. The data dictionary itself is what we call our Rosetta Stone for MLS data in the real estate industry. And essentially, we are globalizing the common fields that are in all of the MLS markets and all of the brokerage data sets to be a standard name, data type, and data definition. And you'll see an example on the screen today of living area, a very small example, but living area is the formal word in the RESO Data Dictionary, and there'll be a small definition with it, and then some technical information with that as well. And so you can see the data dictionary online at the RESO Data Dictionary Wiki. It has a very English version view for you to comprehend. Take a look at it. See if there's some fields in your local marketplace that we haven't made sure they were incorporated in the RESO Data Dictionary, because it's our goal to support all locales of real estate. Many do say that real estate is quite local, and a lot of the local markets we deal with are local fields such as lanais, which typically only exist in Florida and Hawaii, but we want to make sure a broker that might work both of those markets has a consistent experience when they are bringing their products to Hawaii and Florida and they are serving consumers that want a lanai as compared to a patio, because they are different in their definitions. From RESO's perspective, we are on the current 1.5 version of the RESO Data Dictionary. We have the latest version, which is 1.6, coming out. It'll be before the RESO Board of Directors in August for review and ratification, and we see that moving forward. To give you a little bit of statistics, the 1.5 version of the data dictionary has over 1,000 fields and 1,400 values that someone could select within their MLS listing input form within it. The 1.6 version adds another 1,000 plus elements to it. So as we take a look at our goals is to create a nationwide data standard that standardizes all your very important local market needs in a consistent manner, so that the brokerage community is supported and the technology community is supported with true consistent data in a standardized manner. And for us, our North Star is it would be a wonderful world to see an agent sit down with a consumer with a listing input form, and all the way through the entire transaction of selling that home, there is a consistent experience. The listing input form looks just like what a consumer sees on a portal website, on a brokerage website, in some of the technology products that send them auto notification of property matching. Because in today's world, we see some confusion. Websites are not consistent in the way that they display data, and that's because of lack of standardization. We are really working towards a true standard that all entities show consistently, and that is our RESO Data Dictionary. And so take a look at the wiki, see if your local fields are there. If not, you may want to send those in and contribute to see if we can standardize those and include those And then you can also download the data dictionary in Excel format for your convenience to look at it in an Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes that's easier. So as I mentioned the data dictionary, I want to move forward in the conversation about transporting the data. This is where RESO started. In the late 90s, websites were coming about that needed MLS data. Agents wanted to have listings on their websites. Also, if you do recall, and it's been a while, the late 90s was a world of dial-up. And many agents needed to be able to sit down with consumers and show them property listings, but they were no longer attached to their modem at their home office, so they needed a way to fetch MLS data and pull it into a product to be able to show a consumer in front of them with their laptop without having internet connectivity. That's where RESO was born. Competitors sat down together, just like the electricity industry, and said, how can we work together? And the RETS standard was born in the late 90s. Now, many of you understand the term RETS. RETS has been around many years. It has been very successful in the industry, and almost all data feeds up until this year were powered by the RETS specification. Many of us don't have cars 17 plus years old, let alone technology platforms. And so taking a look at the success of RETS being a standard that's valued to the industry, we want to move forward. And as such, the RESO Board of Directors has officially retired and sunsetted the RETS working group. So there will be no new revisions of that standard as we have moved towards the RESO Web API. And why did we do that, and what is the RESO Web API? So APIs in general, and I won't go into the technical details of them, they allow the ability to piggyback different sets of data from different products into one common application. And so I like to say, if you like to use Words with Friends and you invite Facebook friends to play Words with Friends with you, those are two APIs that are talking together to allow Words with Friends to see your Facebook contacts. That's done through an API. So essentially, that is a convenience factor for you using applications on your phone, on your laptop that connect to other applications. Many of you with MLS systems have this behind the scene today. You have mapping, that's powered by an API. You may have integration with products like tax or walk score information. Those are all powered by APIs. And so essentially, the API from RESO's perspective is leveraging global technologies that exist in the world. The RETS standard was developed in a proprietary manner for the real estate industry. When we looked at the challenges we see today with RETS, the biggest challenge is that those with great products outside the industry had a barrier to entry when they needed to fetch MLS data. It was too expensive for them to move into this industry. And so the RESO Web API uses two aspects of global technologies that are leveraging what other people are doing in the world. I won't go into the specifics of those, but you'll see two icons on the screen, OData and OpenID Connect. OData is the global standard for transporting data that was developed by the OASIS OData work group, and that's powered by Microsoft and Google and Oracle and HP and IBM and so many others. And RESO is a member of OASIS, and we do contribute to the OData standard to make sure their evolution support what RESO needs. But this allows our industry to have plug-and-play tools from companies like Microsoft to be able to access MLS data. It's designed to support the mobile world that we live in. So flash forward from the dial-up days to the 90s to now the world of mobile with tablets and smartphones and hotspots that you connect all of your devices to on the road. OData is a technology standard that allows for that with ease, where RETS doesn't solve the challenge such as easily today. It allows for faster implementations, and I have a real-world story for you today. Is Redfin, a large nationwide broker, is requesting to move to RESO standards. And as they enter new MLS markets and they become a participant in the MLS, if they can obtain an API data feed in the data dictionary format, they can take one software engineer and have that MLS data on their broker products, including their website, in 24 hours. If they go to an MLS that only has RETs and does not have the RESO data dictionary, it takes a team of 4 to 6 engineers 4 to 6 weeks to do the same level of MLS data integration. So if you can only imagine from the broker perspective, one employee in 24 hours time to market compared to 4 to 6 engineers in 4 to 6 weeks, this is a real world example of how standards are working. Much of this is based upon the fact that OData is very easy for them to use and to plug into, and it provides them this less expensive implementation model, and it actually helps lower the barrier to entry to new businesses, if you can imagine startup companies, if you will. Now, I also have OpenID Connect on there. That is the authentication standard, and I only wanted to mention that to you because while you may not be familiar with the term, that is another global authentication standard. If you use Gmail and you use Facebook and you like to link those together with what we know in our industry with single sign-on, that is the power of OpenID. All of the major entities that allow you to log into their sites use OpenID for user authentication. So we've included that as the authentication method in the RESO Web API standard for the same benefits of using global technologies such as OData. And essentially, one thing that I always like to mention about the API is you all as MLSs are great stewards of your data. You protect the broker's data, you make sure that it's only being distributed in an authorized manner, but one thing that has a benefit for you from the API perspective that you may not realize is it provides MLS data access without requiring data replication. So back in the 90s when we wanted to download the entire MLS database to our laptop and then be able to plug offline, we don't have those needs today, but you definitely have a need to continue being the good steward of MLS data and provide brokers and agents a peace of mind that the data is in the proper places, used in the proper methods. And with the API, you can give people the ability to access the data without downloading it. If you consider a mobile app, a consumer may view 3 or 4 properties. They don't need to download the MLS database on a mobile phone. That technology company doesn't even want to download all of that data and manage it. They would like to access it in real time and on the fly, and that's one of the beautiful things about the API standard we have today. And there's a link at the bottom of this that kind of describes what is the RESO Web API and can give you more information about that. And as we look to go to the future, as future iterations, as RESO is currently working on the update API. And so in our world, we're used to software distribution of data from the MLS, but we've had a lot of requests in the industries for brokers who want to push data into MLSs as opposed to download that data. And essentially, we are working on RESO for an update specification that still uses OData that will allow a broker down the road, if you authorize them through your MLS business rule process, to take their broker back-end system that they already have listings in it and just push it into the MLS, following your business rules that you have in place and your authentication to allow them to do that. But that is the next version of the RESO Web API standard that we are working on and trying to get that pushed out by the end of this year. And so those are the 2 work products of RESO. And I wanted to do one mention to everyone on the call is that NAR has a policy that requires MLSs who are owned or affiliated with NAR to adopt RESO standards. This policy came about as a request by the brokerage community. So I think it's very important to realize this was not policy by RESO. This was not policy by NAR. This was a policy request by the brokerage community to adopt RESO standards at the MLS level so you can have your brokers leverage all the benefits of standards that we have today. And so essentially there are a couple of dates in here, which we are past now, But there's one very important item is that you need, as an MLS, to implement new versions of RESO standards 1 year from the RESO board ratifying them. So as I mentioned, August 2017 will be the schedule for the board to ratify the next version of the RESO data dictionary. MLSs will then have 1 year to adopt that and to stay in compliance with this policy mandate. You can demonstrate your compliance with the policy through RESO certification services that are, again, an MLS benefit. Our certification process is not what I like to call the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles that say your headlights busted, you failed. We work with you and your software providers as MLSs or anyone else through the certification process, such as technology companies and brokerages who can also get certified. But we work with you as a service to make sure you're adopting standards correctly. And so we will do all we can, certify you as many times over and over again if we need to do so to make sure that you stay in compliance. And certifications do expire annually. And it's important to know that because we release a new version of the data dictionary annually. And we want to make sure that annually you haven't changed something in your environment that would break your adoption of standards. If you're an MLS, you may have an MLS committee that wants to change fields on the listing input form that could affect your adoption of standards. And I would actually advise you to look at the data dictionary wiki in advance if you have a request for changes in the fields in the MLS, and do it the data dictionary way if it's there. If it's not there, ask us, because it could be something that's already been talked about in discussion forums and it just hasn't been into the final version of the specification. And so with that, I want to close from the RESO perspective and pass it over to Kevin Greene, who's going to talk about the Trestle platform and how it helps you with compliance with the NAR policy, adopting RESO standards, and helping the brokerage community get the benefits they need and the cost reductions they need that the standards we have help them with today.
Thanks, Jeremy. If we could go to the next slide, Camilla. I guess 2 slides. As Jeremy said, while we're working on getting to the next slides, you know, part of what Trestle here at CoreLogic, why we created Trestle is to help you, the MLS community, be able to meet those standards set by NAR, and then help the creation of those, as Jeremy pointed out, from RESO, as far as creating what those standards are and updating those on an annual basis. And that's what Trestle is designed to do. It is there to help you maintain those standards, and we do that on an annual basis with your certifications, which, as we just are going through right now and submitted today for Data Dictionary 1.5, and we continually update that on your behalf, as well as we'll talk a little bit about data licensing agreements, etc. But, you know, we here at Trestle want to help you provide a RESO standardized feed, and it's really simple as far to do it. And so I think it's easier to show what we're doing and how we're doing it to help you maintain those, to meet those standards. And we'll go through that, and then we can obviously, as Jeremy mentioned, we'll do some Q&A afterwards, because I think there are a lot of questions in regards to it, and we're here to help you. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Camilla. You know, the first thing is what is Trestle? And Trestle is an MLS-centric data delivery and e-commerce platform, as well as a contract management platform. In conjunction, from a document management standpoint, we have contracted and partnered with Instinet to provide document management and e-signature, as well as we have e-commerce capabilities that we just launched on June 26th with Stripe. And so it really provides you with a one-stop area to manage your data licensing agreements and data feeds out there. But you can't do that until you subscribe. And so the first thing that you need to do at Trestle is to subscribe. And if you'll visit trestle.corelogic.com, you'll be able to go in there and set up your account. And it's very important that you go through all of it, including entering your company and e-commerce information. As we mentioned, it is an e-commerce platform as well. We just launched that, and so it's really important that you go back in there, even if you have already subscribed. Go back in there and set up your e-commerce information so that we can make sure when a technology provider does access the system and requests a data feed from you, that you can get paid. But the important part of the subscription, was also the first step of launching Trestle. And just so that we can kind of set the stage of where we are and how we got here, the first part is for have MLSs subscribe. We was very excited that we had over 120 MLSs initially sign up and to get their data licensing certification through Trestle. But as Jeremy said, and we started that on October 21st. But as Jeremy said, part of the certification process is also the ability to deliver data through Trestle or deliver a RESO data feed. And I'm proud to say we have 76 MLSs that have put their data feeds on Trestle, as we like to call it, on the shelf, and so that technology providers can access. And we have opened that up for MLS data feed setup and technology provider access on March 21st. And so you have the ability from an MLS, from a subscription standpoint, to come and subscribe and set that information up. So the important part is you'll receive an email, login, approve a subscription contract. You'll have everything right there to be able to subscribe. Next slide, please.
Kevin, you must be on a slow connection. The data license agreement slide is displaying.
Oh, thank you. So the next thing is your data licensing agreement. The nice part about, as I mentioned, is keeping everything up to date. Here at CoreLogic, we understand that things are changing, and they change all the time as we're moving from as Jeremy mentioned, from RETS to a data dictionary standard and now an API. We always want to maintain that the latest agreement to be able to support that. And so our attorneys here at CoreLogic have taken the time to draft an agreement, a generic agreement, and I hate to use the word generic, but we're not a party of it, and we'll give it to you as a Word document so that you can modify it to your needs. But we have taken the time to provide a data licensing agreement for you, and we'll always maintain that and have it current. But if you don't want to use the one that we have that maintains the API and recognizes Trestle, we can, as the data delivery method, we can utilize your agreement. The one thing we would ask is we provide you with an addendum so that you can see to your existing agreement so that it states that you're going to be utilizing Trestle for data delivery. But then after that, when we get your agreements all set up, the next thing is data analysis. As Jeremy mentioned, the RESO standard is part of a standard that complies to multiple MLSs. And so, while I'm from Florida and oceanfront property is great, oceanfront doesn't exactly coincide with somebody from Kansas. And so this is a standardized feed that is put together and done that. And so we need to do some data analysis for you, and we at Trestle and CoreLogic have a complete Trestle data ops team to help you analyze your data and make sure what you have in there is correct and mapped to the correct standard, and being able to do that and to provide that. If there is something that is a localized field that you absolutely have to have, as Jeremy mentioned, there are work groups and such in RESO that I would highly recommend talking with RESO and being able to get involved about adding that to the standard, because the more standardized fields that we have, the more robust it is, and it's a great option. But we're really trying to stick with what is the standardized fields as well as what you are legally required to display. And I mean that, so you have something like in Hawaii, we have land lease. that's legally required to display, so we'll support that. But really, we're really trying to provide a standardized data feed in there, and we'll provide that data analysis for you. Next slide. The next part is setting up your data feed. So now that we've done the data analysis, we need to set up your feeds and define them. You have the ability to go in there and set what your how much that you are going to charge for said data feeds, whether it's tiered pricing, setup fees, etc. Handle all of that information for each one of these types of data feeds. You'll be able to put in your data licensing agreement, set what your terms are regarding that. You can decide whether or not you want to charge monthly, quarterly, annually. Again, as I mentioned, tiered pricing, as well as if you're in non-disclosure states or something, you can suppress any data fields, pardon me, any data fields that you want in your data feed. You'd be able to do that. And again, as I mentioned before, we have the Trestle Data Ops team that helps you as far as data analysis is concerned. We also have the Trestle support team that is more than willing to go in and help you, walk you through this process. They have done that, as I mentioned, with 76 other folks that are in there and have the ability to go in there. So it's really important that you go in and set up your data feeds, as we say, putting product on the shelf. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, when you go in there, you're configuring each data feed individually. So you're setting up your business rules, the fees that go around that, the contract, and more importantly, as far as that suppressing the data that goes around that. So it's very important. And as I mentioned, the Trestle the Trestle support team is really there to help you walk through each part of the process of setting up your data feeds within Trestle. Next slide. And this one's extremely important. Contact your technology providers. A lot of people say, well, no one's asked me for a RESO API or a RESO data dictionary feed. A lot of people don't know that you have that available, and they don't know to ask you. So it's really, really important for you to send out an email to your folks after you set everything up to let them know, the technology providers that are in your area, that you have this available so that they can start to use that. Number one. Number two, we have a lot of folks that have asked, as mentioned, how do we encourage people to move over to that standard to be able to do that? Because as Jeremy mentioned, from an API and from a security standpoint, not having to replicate the data, it's really important to get there and have that. So how do we get people to move over to that? You can. There's many different ways, as I've heard from MLSs, as far as setting things up, from ripping the Band-Aid off and requiring it. Starting January 1, maybe we're moving all of the data feeds over. So here, why don't you sign up for Trestle now and get ready to do that. To anybody, any new data feeds, any new data license requests, you're going to have to use one of the RESO standard feeds. And then creating a drop dead date to start moving people over, or again just letting people know that it's there and having them request. But the Trestle support team is there to help you manage that process. We already have templated emails that we can provide to you to help you send out to your technology providers. So for some MLSs that are looking at doing, as I mentioned, ripping the Band-Aid off, we can have the ability to help you and provide webinars to your technology providers to be able to do that. But we're really there to help you get through that. And part of that is because, as we talked about that security thing of getting to the API, we'll talk a little bit at the end about what are the next steps with Trestle and getting there. But then next, once you have stuff on the shelf, as again we say, as technology providers can go to Trestle. What they have to do when they go in, they have to put in their product information just like anybody else, so that when they do a request for data access, you're going to see their agreement, you're going to see what product it's for, and they've accepted your terms. And so you're going to get an email. It's going to ask you to review the data agreement, and you're going to be able to go in there and accept the new data request. Again, what's important is it's all electronic based. We have AuthentiSign through Instanet to be able to sign the documents. Those documents are stored within Trestle, and you'll always have access to them. And you can do it from an audit standpoint. Trestle will help you from any type of contract audit, as well as being able to see who's using the data from a broker standpoint, and being able to go find any auditing personnel, be able to go in there and utilize that. And then more importantly, when you did use the audit and you found someone that might not be doing what they're supposed to be doing, you can go in there and can turn them off at any time. There's a big disable connection button within each connection, as we like to say, and you can go in there and disable a connection at any time. And then also, and therefore, when they do become in compliance, go back in and hit a button and hit enable. And then more importantly, once you enable that connection, money is direct deposited into your account. Again, as I mentioned, this is a complete e-commerce solution. So if you are, a lot of MLSs, we found that typically bill annually and have to do that. A lot of them really like the opportunity to move to a monthly billing apparatus, and then have the ability to just have monthly revenue coming in and directly deposited into your account. And it's really that simple as far as what the stages are, as far as setting up Trestle, and then obviously step 6 and 7 is delivering a data feed and receiving money. What are the next phases in Trestle? As I talked a little bit about why, and Jeremy talked a little bit about why the API is so important from a security standpoint, and that's part of what we're here at CoreLogic as a data company really want to help provide that. And so part of it's on the roadmap, and we're actively looking at companies as far as being able to provide data seeding, anti-scraping, and watermarking capabilities to allow you to, as I mentioned, from an auditing standpoint, as well as from a data security standpoint. So, we as your MLS partner are looking at ways to help you provide a RESO data feed and meet those standards that you need. One of the things that didn't mention, and that is a big concern, and we'll probably get into the question and answer portion, is how much does Trestle cost? A lot of the early adopters, we actually, we feel so compelled about this. We provided this to MLSs. We waived the fee for 10 years for early adopters of the $125 a month. We have a lot of technology costs that went into this, and so we need to recoup that. And we heard from MLSs that they really didn't want to have to pay for the ability to deliver data. And we also feel that vendors are the ones that are utilizing the data to power their programs to be able to then give their products to the members. And then they see a lot of value in it, as well as being able to receive that unified data feed from multiple MLSs. So we do charge vendors, or what we call technology providers, $75 per data feed. And I want to be clear on that. That's per feed per MLS. So if you're in Orlando and you're in my Florida, and you're a technology provider and you have 100 brokers in that market, we're only charging that technology provider $75 for that feed. And when they expand into Jacksonville, Florida, they get a data feed from Jacksonville, they're going to get charged another $75, even though they're dealing with another 100 brokers. Or then they're in Naples and they get another another 100 brokers, that's only another $75. But the important part is, for a technology provider, they're going to one spot and being able to manage all of their data feeds, all their contracts, and being able to see everything from there. But more importantly, they're only receiving one data feed or making one API call and accessing all of those systems. And that's quite a bit of value for a technology provider. So that's how Trestle and CoreLogic is helping MLSs support the standards and provide data feeds via the standards. And so with that, I can see that we're getting close to 15 minutes left, and really wanted to leave a lot of time for questions for both Jeremy and I, as we've been getting a lot as we've been going through.
Well, thank you very much. This is Victor Lund again, and excellent job by both of our panelists. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Jeremy. I will just remind everyone that as some of you have put questions in, but by all means, please, if you have questions for either of our panelists, please put them in the questions dialog box. It's part of the GoToWebinar control panel. So the first question that came in is Trestle available to MLSs that are not CoreLogic Matrix customers? I guess that's for Kevin.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, we already have other MLS platform customers that are utilizing Trestle, not only just from a security standpoint, but as I mentioned, they have data feeds live and ready for technology providers to consume. So it doesn't matter whether you are a CoreLogic customer. Trestle is we're trying to provide to the MLS community a platform to deliver RESO data dictionary and API feeds.
Just a follow-up question. This is from me, but is there a different business arrangement with those MLSs that are not Matrix customers?
Absolutely not.
Okay. The next question's for Jeremy. I don't know if somebody was confused when you said this or not, but you indicated that there are about 1,000 standard data fields in the data dictionary version 1.5, and about 1,000 more will be added in data dictionary 1.6. I'm not sure if that's true or false, but that's the question. And can you just talk about what is the next version of the data dictionary, and what are we likely to see in 1.6?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's a great question. Yeah, so 1,000 fields and 1,400 values. Values would be, say, granite countertops that is part of a kitchen feature is in 1.5. 1.6 adds another 1,000 elements, not necessarily 1,000 fields, but it's a bunch of more fields and a lot more values, say more kitchen features, more green features, if you will. So there's a big expansion there. But what we've taken a look is that over the past 5 years, we feel we've done a great job with the basic standards surrounding the listing data. And now we're getting into an exciting realm to talk about other areas of data standardization. And so what's coming about in 1.6, saved search standardization is a real big ticketed item. So if you can imagine an agent who sets up a search for a consumer in the MLS system, and then that consumer likes to use other products to do their searching, the ability to replicate the saved search information between products is another standard that has come about from RESO's perspective. It was a challenge that the brokerage community had with searches being different. It's a challenge I saw when I bought a home in Dallas, and I used one platform and my wife used the other, and our saved searches and our carts were always different, never synced up. So one big ticketed item you will see in the next version is standardization of saved searches, as well as list and carts, to provide the ability to have those portable. You may actually want to have two MLS softwares of interface, one that you develop yourself and one with Matrix. And the ability to sync up saved searches is now available through standardization. We've also done showing information. So showing information from the major showing companies that are out there as competitors sat down and worked to standardize their data to allow showing information to go from an MLS to a showing system to a broker in a consistent manner. And some of the nationwide brokers use multiple showing softwares, some on their own and some in combination with others. And so that's another example of standardization that's in the next version that's above and beyond the typical property elements that we see today. We're also looking at having internet tracking information in there. So hits between portals can be aggregated in a consistent manner so a broker can see what their listings are doing everywhere they're advertising it in a standardized manner and get standardized reports. That's in the next version of the data dictionary, the first iteration of that. And accessibility features. Accessibility features is something that we had to go out and hire experts in the industry to make sure we had the terms correctly. And those terms are now standardized in the next version, which will also help you as an MLS to use those on the listing input form, because there's a peace of mind that you know RESO did the right thing to get companies that do visitability and accessibility certification to give us the proper terms to provide a little bit of peace of mind that the agent's selecting the correct terminology as it relates to the accessibility of a home. So those are some items that are coming back out in the next version of the data dictionary. Thank you for that question, Victor.
Yeah, so accessibility is like, for example, if you're trying to find a home and you're handicapped and you need to know if, if it's wheelchair accessible, that kind of stuff. Another question is regarding, you mentioned that RETS is no longer a standard and it's going to be sunset, or it is sunset. But RETS update was an optional component of that standard. Is the new update API, web API, also going to be part of 1.6 release so that we see that in 2018, or are we going to not see that until 2019?
The 1.6 releases the data dictionary, so that's the definition of the fields and the values. The update specification will be part of the API specification, and that's been set to be version 1.1 of the RESO web API. It's our goal to have the first version of that in a draft form by the fall of this year. And where RETS update was an optional standard, and people do use it today, and we are taking lessons learned from the successes of RETS update in different markets, for the API update, it will actually currently, as it's set, will be tied to the MLS adoption policy. It'll be an official ratified standard that MLSs will be required to adopt. That does not mean your business rules and your policies for editing listings are not a part of that. That is something you set at your local MLS market. But having the update API functionality will be required as an adoptable standard. And if that's out and ratified by the end of, say, 2017, then by the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019, MLSs would need to adopt that functionality. I'm not sure if it'll come that fast, but it is getting really close, and they're making great progress in our transport work group and utilizing the features of OData to make sure it supports the global technology sector and supports other industries moving into providing innovative products and services in our industry.
Excellent. So the next question is for Kevin Greene. Can you please tell us what does it mean to be native data dictionary, and should MLSs be moving in that direction?
Kevin, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, I was going to say that's more of on Jeremy's side.
Yeah, so essentially, just to explain this to the community that's with us today, your listing input form is what we would call your native MLS set of fields and values. The data feed itself that you send to a broker or a technology company that makes products and needs MLS data would be the data dictionary compliant feed. Some MLSs have changed their listing input form to provide a consistent experience between the agent entering the listing and the broker using the data in their products and services from the data dictionary compliance. It is recommended from RESO's perspective that everything is consistent with your fields. However, we do understand changing your listing input forms to match the RESO data dictionary is a pretty large effort. And so as such, companies such as CoreLogic with Trestle has taken an intermediate step to map your current listing input forms into a data dictionary compliant data feed. That gives the brokers consistent data feeds following RESO standards. What the missing link is, it doesn't give the agent the same level of consistency with the listing input form. So we hope as we move through the next few years that we do see then commonality in the native listing input forms matching the RESO data dictionary. And that's why I advise everyone, if you're going to change those listing input forms, take that opportunity to match what RESO's doing, because it will not only help you with consistency, it will help your data feeds out there not have to be translated if the input forms are not matching. So it's a great question, Victor. Thank you.
You're going to love the follow-up one. So the follow-up question is So you mentioned that as people are developing and reviewing their listing input forms, they should look at the data dictionary wiki, which is available on the RESO website. The next and compare that to, compare their listing input forms to the data dictionary. The next question is, if we send you our listing input form, would you do that for us?
Absolutely. It might take us a little bit of time, but we would be happy to do that and help you out with that. So if you want to email me, jeremy@reso.org, we'll take that on as an internal research project. It's our opportunity to help you adopt standards for the benefits of your broker community, and we will do everything in our power to do that. So if you want to send us listing input forms, then we will happily take a look at those and match those up to the data dictionary and do that for you. So we would love to help out with that to move along that native implementation.
Oh, that's awesome. The next question, this is for either of you, but does native data dictionary help with system conversions? If so, how?
Yes, it absolutely does. And the reason I say that is that technology companies such as CoreLogic are extremely familiar with the RESO data dictionary. Kevin and his team there are pretty much experts in the RESO data dictionary. And so the ability to do a software conversion amongst known parties of the standard is going to make it a faster experience. And it also gives you the option to have multiple interfaces of choice, since all parties might be known to the standard. So it would definitely help you in the conversion aspects of a product that you might have, knowing that those companies are now very familiar with the standard of the RESO data dictionary. They've already built tools to do that conversion today. When you have a lot of custom stuff, they have to go build custom stuff. If you have the standard, they've already built data importers and data converters for those.
Excellent. I would contribute to that, I'm aware that both MLS listings in the San Jose area, as well as the California regional MLS, and that covers, I don't know, some significant portion of California, have endeavored to go native data dictionary where possible, and both of those companies are on a path to offer multiple MLS systems to their users. So people who prefer one over the other, or might have joined their organization, through a another regional joining in to MLS listings or CRMLS that were using a different system before and didn't want to disrupt their real estate agents who are using that system, can have that front-end system of choice. So with that, I am all out of questions. If anybody wants to throw another question in the questions dialog box, we'll try to get it answered. Other than that, we're just about to top of the hour. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Victor, I see about 10 questions that came across my question queue. So maybe if I can hit it.
Go for it. Okay.
So one question we have is the API feed going to be in JSON format? Yes. The API standard specification is JSON format. OData has two options, one Atom and one JSON. They have moved away from Atom, and JSON is at the forefront of OData, and JSON is at the forefront of the RESO API standard. That's a great question, and thank you for sending that in. And then, Kevin, there's a couple of questions for you regarding expenses, about the annual expense and clarifying the fees. And I think there might be a confusion of the MLS, $125, and the $75 monthly. Could you go over that just briefly again?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremy. And I'm not seeing the question, so I appreciate that. Yeah, let's be really, really clear as far as how this works. For an MLS, all the early adopters, we did not charge there is no charge for up to 10 years. We do have a charge of $125 per month for MLSs, and that's really to cover our costs with document management, et cetera, going into that. But where we really are, the charge is it's $75 this chart per technology provider, and that charges directly to the technology provider. You are not paying that. The technology provider is being charged $75 for access to Trestle and having a combined combined RESO data dictionary feed, or making one call for an API to multiple MLSs. It is $75 per MLS per feed. And that when I say per feed, I want to make sure that it gets kind of confusing. It's not per request to you as far as an MLS. We don't care if it's 100 brokers, 1,000 agents, if it's whatever. It's just a one fee of $75 per month per MLS for that fee.
Yeah, and just to clarify, there was one other related question about what is a example of a technology provider. So this would be such as an IDX company that makes websites nationwide for brokers and agents, and they may need to have 7 IDX feeds from 7 different MLSs to serve as a technology provider in that area for IDX websites. You could have other products such as CMA products would be a technology provider as well.
100%, Jeremy. Thanks for that clarification. And to use your example of, you and your wife were using, separate portals to view houses when moving to Dallas. Those portals are typically in multiple MLSs. And they're doing that. So it's the same deal with let's say you have a large broker that that straddles multiple Berkshire Hathaway or a Long and Foster that straddles multiple MLSs and is displaying multiple feeds from there. That's where it comes in, that they'll be getting feeds that all come into one call, especially from an API standpoint. When someone types in an address, it's making one call to one database and they're getting it.
Great. We have some more questions here. A couple more questions coming in. What's the next step, Kevin? We know that Trestle has completed our MLS RESO compliance, but we don't know yet where to begin with logging in and setting up and moving from there. So that may be, Kevin, a follow-up you'd like to provide to them specifically for their MLS environment?
Absolutely. Please contact your Trestle support person, or you can go to or email support@trestle.com. They'd be more than happy to help you set that up, because that is the next part. Once you've got your compliance, and that was the first part of getting Trestle to go, because to make it beneficial for technology providers, as Jeremy mentioned, is having that pool of standardized data and being able to have them go to it. And so, that's why we've had the rollout of Trestle being what it is. From we officially had our first part as far as MLS access, as I mentioned, October 21st, so that we could get that certification. So March 21, we had the MLS data. You could set up your data feeds, and TPs could request them. And now we just launched the e-commerce so that you can actually charge and have everything there. We really need you to go in there and set up, not only your data feeds but also your e-commerce so that you can get charged. So if you do have any questions or need any help, please contact support@trestle.com, and we'll be more than happy to help you.
Yeah, and if I may key off that for just 1 minute, the MLSs that are represented here today, because I know there's quite a few of you on the call, you've done an enormous job, and kudos to you for getting your certifications, joining RESO if you weren't a member in the past, contributing to standards. The next step is, let's help the industry get better by promoting standardized data feeds and give that out as your priority. Put on your website the RESO certified logo so technology companies know. They typically visit your MLS website first. Put the RESO certified logo there that you are certified, then they know instantly they can ask you for a standardized feed, and that will benefit your brokers. So you've done all of the heavy lifting to date. Now it's time to reap those benefits by advertising what you've done and providing that out as a priority. So we have some more questions in here. Kevin, this one is, will Trestle be the only way to get data feeds? Perhaps the API will allow for custom development. Kevin, this may speak to someone that is giving out data feeds from, say, Matrix RETs today. Could you answer that question as far as, will Trestle be the only way going forward for getting data feeds?
Yeah, this gets back, and maybe I'm sorry to put you a little bit on the hot seat too, Jeremy, because we've tried to work with we're trying to work with RESO and Jeremy, as well as CMLS, in creating best practices for doing this. We do know that there are technology providers that require a full feed, and that is up to you as far as how you want to set up who gets what in that manner. I think that being able to provide a standardized feed to MLSs, to technology providers is very important, especially we do have as Jeremy mentioned before, reasons why we're having not as much growth as far as technology is being able to have some standards to be able to move from one MLS to another to be able to scale a product. And so lots of technology providers are really excited about being able to have access to, especially to an API that manages multiple MLSs. So it really starts getting into how are you going to, what access points are you as an MLS are going to decide to allow that. As I mentioned before, I've seen MLSs that have decided any new technology provider, any new data licensing requests, we're only going to allow them to get a RESO standard feed. And we've seen some MLSs that are going to do a migration in a year and letting people know. We're seeing some that are going to rip the Band-Aid off and make everybody do it. But the matrix ret server will still be there if you do have technology providers that need to get that full feed with those localized fields that are within there. But that gets to a little bit of what are you going to do that? How are you going to manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. And just so everyone knows, we're going to stay on even though we're past time, because we want to make sure we get all of these great questions answered. There's quite a few in here. We have one for me about the compliance certification aspects. Someone's new to their position and they have a certification expiring in February and would like it reissued in your name. Again, certification's a member benefit, and we will reissue your certifications and update any of your name information on there if you're a new association executive as the primary contact. If you'll just send an email over to info@reso.org, which I get a copy of every one of those emails, then we'll make sure that we can reissue your certification and make sure you're set up for renewal. We work with CoreLogic specifically with shared spreadsheets, and we all keep track of every CoreLogic customer and every RESO member that uses the CoreLogic Trestle platform to make sure as easily as we can to keep you certified on a regular basis and to keep you elevated on the latest version as well. You may not see it behind the scenes, but we've tried to put in the easy button for you and work directly with CoreLogic, and we've been doing that. So, so if you can just send an email over to info@reso.org, we'll make sure any contact information of your membership and your certifications are up to date. And even if you want to just ask the status and what's coming next, feel free to reach out because we're here to help you out with that.
If I could piggyback on that, Jeremy, and that gets back to what we here at CoreLogic are doing, and as Jeremy said, we are working almost hand in glove with RESO to make sure that we are meeting the standards and taking care of that for you. So like when we originally launched, as I mentioned, in October to get that, we were at bronze, and then in December we moved to silver. In April we moved to gold, and as I mentioned also at the beginning, we submitted our latest today to get to the next certification. So we're working to maintain that for you, and we're also working with Jeremy and all the folks at RESO of keeping you up to date as we move along.
Yeah, great. A couple of questions just to clarify. We are recording this for you today, and once we convert that recording, everyone will receive an email to the location of the recording. So we'll make sure that's publicly available for you and for others to see that we're not able to make the call today. A quick clarifying question on defining the API term JSON. JSON is an open standard file format that is easy for humans to read and write, but it's also easy for machines to read and write, and it's based upon JavaScript. And so if you saw it in a text file, it will look much like XML, a little bit like HTML, but essentially you could read it and understand it, and machines can read it and understand it, and browsers can parse through it really easy over the internet. And it's an open source standard that many in the world of data use today because it is very easy to read it as a software developer and then have your programs read it at the same time and figure out what those are. Kevin, we have a question. Are API calls to Trestle throttled in any manner today? No,
they're not at this moment in time. They're not. But however, you will be able to. That's part of what is, a feature that is coming shortly, as far as being able to see what folks are pulling and being able to monitor that.
Right. And in the RESO standard, we don't put any type of throttling information there in the standard specification. That's up to your software provider to decide if you need to do any type of throttling. You may have a particular user that are not familiar with the API standard and they access it in a, let's say, dirty manner that could cause performance implications. So in that instance, you may have a particular user you chose to throttle at a certain given time. But that's something I would have you work directly with your software provider, such as CoreLogic with Trestle, to see is there any abuse or misuse of the API that could cause a performance impact on the others that also need that same set of data. So we have one good question here. Speak to the RETS vendor reactions to the switch from a current RETS feed from a non-CoreLogic MLS customer to a feed via Trestle. I think that, Kevin, maybe you've had more real-world experience of a couple of people that have switched over to Trestle from a technology or provider or a broker. Could you speak to that question?
Well, and granted, we're just going through that now, as we've been live for a few months, and they're in the process of moving over to that. So so far it's been good. It's been a good experience, and they're going through it, but it's still a smaller set, and we're going through that now. So it's been a very positive experience.
And what we've seen industry-wide overall from the RESO perspective, new technology companies,
yes,
or companies that are going into new markets are going to ask for the standardized API-based feed at the forefront. Companies that have put in infrastructure today to access RETS environments from, say, matrix direct data feeds, they're not going to initially take the expense to do that conversion today. But when you see the benefits over time organically is what we see companies with infrastructure in place today moving those feeds over. We're doing case studies at RESO, and one example is homes.com. They have over 500 MLS data feeds. A huge amount of infrastructure was put into place to do that over the past 10 years. They are moving to use the RESO data dictionary, and they are working on converting everything that they've already built up over to RESO standards because they see the benefit, and we will be doing some detailed case studies released to the industry later this year of their experiences in doing that from a company that has an enormous amount of data feeds from not only MLSs, but also directly from brokers and from third-party syndicators as well. Kevin, we've got a question here. To buy all 800 MLS feeds across the country, that might cost $700,000 a year. So I think that, to clarify, there's only less than 700 MLSs now due to consolidation. But Kevin, could you speak to that question potentially? Would that be $230,000?
Yeah, this is Victor. So we did some research on this with a number of providers who are managing more than 100 MLS data feeds. And the response to them is that transferring from the current RETS environment over to the web API, given the ability to repurpose the database resources that are required to pull in that data, migrate that data every day into a common database, and trying to match up data that's not coming through the API with RETS data and things like that, that it would actually save them money. So these companies are already paying well over $1 million a year if they're at over 600 MLSs. So they see this as a great opportunity for them. However, I would say that some of them are like, you know what, we're really, really, really good at managing RETS data, and we've made that a center of excellence, and this kind of levels the playing field. It allows anybody to get all of this data seamlessly and easily all from one data feed. And so some of them are like, I'm a little disturbed that I don't get to make that a center of excellence in my company. However, they see that the benefits outweigh that concern.
Yeah,
and then let me just add a little bit, Victor, to that, as far as this, as we get to 700 plus MLSs, we're going to need more support staff. I mean, right now, just to let you know, from a cost of running Trestle, we have over we currently have 6 Trestle support staff members. We have 10 folks that are on the Trestle data ops team. We have developers, et cetera, that are all dedicated to Trestle. So this isn't, exactly, does not cost CoreLogic any money to run. So there is, and as we do add MLSs, we'll need to be able to expand and be able to support that, and then also being able to support technology providers and the questions that they're going to have, the technical questions they're going to have as far as needing from connections, et cetera, and adding those type of support people as well. So this is an ever evolving product that we're providing in a service for you as the MLS.
Right. Yeah, another component to that we hear discussed a lot of times, especially when we're talking to brokerages, is that the database administrators who manage data today from MLSs are highly specialized people. Most companies can only afford to have one of them, so if they lose that person, it's almost impossible to replace them, and they're very, very expensive. Database administrators around the country, usually get a little over $100,000 a year, and in major cities and major markets where there's high demand, they might get $250,000 to $300,000 a year. So having a big team of those people that are managing this data is certainly going to lean out a little bit as we're able to come up with programs like Trestle that give you a single normalized feed across 100 markets. And I think with the markets that you cover now on Trestle, doesn't it equate to about half of all data in real estate?
It is getting there. It's very, very close, Victor. Absolutely.
Okay, so somewhere around 2 million listings or something like that. Do you know where you guys are at?
I don't know from a listing count. I know we're just under 500,000, or just over 500,000 agents. I do it from an agent count.
Yeah, and I think if you speak back to my Redfin case study, just to highlight, 4 to 6 engineers for 4 to 6 weeks, or one of those database professionals for 24 hours of work. That's a huge cost savings in comparison to the potential monthly fee for them for an individual MLS to be integrated. That's a huge cost savings of resources, not alone mentioning the time to market of an agent going from 6 weeks to 1 day, being able to fire up listings on their website, but that savings alone is pretty big for them. Kevin, we have a question for you. The data that's in Trestle, is it when someone accesses Trestle for information from a particular MLS, is that data translated from the native MLS database on the fly in real time, or is it cached? Can you speak to that perhaps?
Yeah, it is going into our Trestle database where we're normalizing that into one additional feed. So it's being done on a right now I think we're just at a little bit right around an hour. We actually have a plan of being able to provide an updated data feed on that for up to 15 minutes by the end of the summer. But so right now it is going into the database and then going out that way.
Great. Thank you for that. So, Victor, that is the last question I have in the question panel. Maybe we'll give it another minute or two if anybody has a final question. You can always reach out to me, jeremy@reso.org. My cell phone is on the website and in my email signature, so I try to make myself as available as possible to help you all with any questions you might have. And Kevin, if you want to maybe provide then your email as well for potential follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely. My email is kgreene, Greene, at the end. So it's kgreene@CoreLogic.com.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone who showed up here today. I mean, it's pretty unusual for 330 MLS executives and staff to show up for a webinar, and we're just thrilled to have you all here. And obviously, this is information that you want coming at you as often as possible. We did record today's webinar. We'll have somebody finalize the recording and send it out to everyone who registered today. We'll also publish it on the RE Technology YouTube page where there's a whole bunch of information and prior webinars where we talked about these topics. But and we'll keep them coming. I know, Kevin, thank you very much. I really appreciate CoreLogic introducing the perspective that they have on how to support MLSs who are trying to become great RESO citizens and contributors. And also, the work that you guys have done at RESO, Jeremy, is incredible. I know it's very, very difficult. It's highly technical, and you and your staff work tirelessly to really make the Real Estate Standards Organization something awesome for our industry. So with that, thank you all very much, and appreciate everyone for attending today, and we'll talk to you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you all.